is there something wrong with all these people? Is it because it's the pace of life? And what do we got
Are
here?
we in Georgia?
Yeah, whatever.
Chevy Chase on the plantation?
Zippity doodah?
Remember when we first met John McClane? Argyle picked him up from the plane and took him down the Nakatomi Tower at the Christmas party. And the terrorists were overzealous, but it was sweet when they killed Ellis. And with a little help from Alan, John McClane kicked ass.
Welcome back to Shat the Movies, the podcast where we answer the question, were the movies we loved when we were growing up really that good? Have you ever caught yourself thinking, why don't they make movies like they used to? Can you still remember spending your Friday night searching for the perfect movie rental at Blockbuster Video? Do you know what Blockbuster Video is? If you answered yes, then this is the podcast for you. I'm one of your hosts, Gene Lyons, and alongside me are my co-hosts, Ash the Accordion King Schlafly.
Hi, y'all.
And Big D, Dick Ebert.
Good evening.
And each week we take a look back in time and decide if our favorite films still hold up. The movies we cover are chosen by you, the listeners, who generously commission the films you love. If you'd like to see all the movies we have covered, will cover, or want to choose one for yourself, please visit shatthemovies.com and have a look. And at the end of each podcast, we will provide you, the audience, with the number of wipes each movie would take to get off your respective butts. So thank you so much for listening. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe button and share with a friend. It's how we help the podcast grow. Additionally, subscribe to our sister podcast, Shat on TV, where we review TV series such as Westworld, Taboo, American Gods, Game of Thrones, True Detective, Watchmen, and Lovecraft Country. You can find all that information and past episodes at shatontv.com. Finally, to hang out with us live all week long, you can follow and subscribe to our Twitch channel, shatthemovies.com/Twitch, where we go on live and play video games, we host watch parties, and we end each week with a Shappy Hour cocktail party, 9 p.m. Eastern at shatthemovies.com/Twitch. All that being said, Big D, what gem of a movie are we reviewing today?
Well, before I get to the movie, I just want to say, in the spirit of Thanksgiving, I want to just let everybody out there know how thankful we are for you guys listening to us all these years. We've had a really great run here. The numbers are up. We're about to hit 2 million downloads for Shat the Movies alone. Our total downloads are going to be somewhere a little south of 9 million. So we really do have a lot to be thankful for. We've had a great string of commissions come in. So we are now commissioned into November of 2021. We could not do this without you. And we hope that you spend this week with the ones that you love, that you can get to, that you feel safe, whatever you're doing. I will be trying to go to New York if I can get a COVID test to spend time with my family and my sister. So I hope everyone out there has a great Thanksgiving weekend and spending so much of your year with us. We really do think of you as family.
And if you've been avoiding COVID tests, I'll tell you, the new ones where they just put the Q-tip thing up your nose, it's a breeze. I was like terrified. I went in there. It was like, whoop, whoop. I don't know what it's like in Florida, Big D, but like in Arizona now, I go weekly and I cruise through. I might be addicted.
Oh, I went the first time. They did the swab, and I was like, I don't think this guy did it right. So like 2 days later, I went to the VA, and they did like the French tickler, like the giant feather down the back of my throat. The lady was like, hey, hold on to your steering wheel. I was like, I'll be able to handle this. I was like, no, I can't. It hit spots like in the back of my throat that I just didn't know existed.
Ash, I feel like 2 or 3 episodes that we've done where Big D's like, it's so easy to please men. Blowjobs aren't tough at all. This is fucking karma, dude.
Well, I'm not blowing Tom. I could imagine that thing hitting the back of my throat like that.
In places you didn't even know existed.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want me to get into the letter now?
No. He hasn't. Oh, shit. Sorry. Wow. Okay. So let's go back. We are doing a movie this year. I totally forgot about that part. I was ready to wrap it up. Happy Thanksgiving.
This is the same dude that I asked for his address for a Christmas card, and he sends me his fucking email today.
Yeah, it's true.
It's 2020, okay. Ash.
So one of the listeners that we do think of as family, who is a truck driver and has listened to us while he's out on the road, he's become a big fan, Eric J. from Iowa. He wrote in and gave us his hard-earned trucker dollars to commission the 1996 Academy Award-winning crime drama, Fargo.
And we love you for it, Eric. And Eric wrote in, hey guys, since I thought of what movie to commission, I can't stop saying, no Gene, no money. I would like to commission the 1996 Best Picture nominee, Fargo. I'm from Iowa, and every year on a snowy weekend, usually in January, my wife and I make it a point to watch this, and then proceed to quote it for the next few weeks. I first saw this at home on video a few years after it came out and fell in love instantly with the quirkiness, the acting, and the dialogue. This is one of my favorites as it holds up and is so very quotable. Take care and, aw geez, fellas. I hope y'all enjoy it. I also want to say thank you to you all. I'm a semi-truck driver and a huge movie buff. When I found your podcast last year, I instantly fell in love. I try to turn on as many people as I can to your show. Keep being you. I love the banter, the wit, the knowledge, the fun facts, the research, and you guys. You certainly make my drives enjoyable. Take care and thank you, Eric J. from Iowa.
You know, driving distances, I think, is a young man's game. Like, I used to be able to drive like 8-10 hours, no problem. Now it's like 6, and I'm like, ooh, it's not going well, you know? I'm falling in the category of my mom, where it's like every 2 hours we need to go to like a McDonald's or something and pull over and do stretches and eat some French fries. So I have a lot of respect for people who can drive distances. Mm-hmm. You know, Big D, you weren't kidding as far as like hard-earned money. Money coming from a trucker means so much more to me.
Mm-hmm.
Hell yeah.
Well, Fargo is a 1996 crime drama written, produced, and directed by Joel and Ethan Coen. Frances McDormand stars as Marge Gunderson, a pregnant Minnesota police chief investigating roadside homicides that ensue after a desperate car salesman, played by William H. Macy, hires 2 criminals, played by Steve Buscemi and Peter Stormare, to kidnap his wife in order to extort a hefty ransom from his wealthy father-in-law. A critical and commercial success, Fargo received 7 Academy Awards nominations, including Best Picture. In 1998, the American Film Institute named it one of the 100 greatest American films in history. A Coen-produced FX TV series of the same name, inspired by Fargo and taking place in the same fictional universe, premiered in 2014 and received critical acclaim, including much praise from the King Bee, who hates absolutely everything. So, Ash, Big D, I had never seen Fargo before. Big D, what are your memories of this movie?
So I think I've mentioned before in one of the other podcasts that I had a connection through Blockbuster, that one of the other employees somehow knew somebody, was a cousin of somebody who got us the actual Academy screeners. And I would at least see the movies that were up for Best Picture. But this year, 96, and the ceremony was in 97, was a really bad year for the movies that I typically like. I had no desire to see Jerry Maguire. The English Patient, no thank you. Secrets and Lies, I did not even know that was a movie. Shine, no idea. Fargo, okay. There's like some murder, there's a cop. This looks like it's for me. So I watched the bootleg copy. So when the Academy Awards came out, I was like, I think Fargo should win everything.
The English Patient, you mean the greatest romance of all time?
Gross.
Oh, no. Listen, it was 2 VHS tapes, so I knew it was far too long for me to ever watch.
Well, so was Braveheart. I bet you watched that.
Yeah, there's swords and people bleeding. What's the English Patient? What is he?
Plane like crashes and people blowing up.
Ralph Fiennes in a sexy white shirt in the desert.
Naveen Andrews being sexier.
Mm-hmm.
You're not selling me on it.
There's a burn patient. I know you like those.
Do we see him get burned?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's no scene where a guy is immolated. No.
So I love this movie from the first time I saw it some point, either at the end of middle school, at the start of high school, and it immediately began an absolute obsession that I had with the Coen Brothers. I love them, from this movie to The Big Lebowski to Burn After Reading to Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? I mean, I think they're absolute fucking geniuses. And this movie kind of started me on the rabbit hole that I'm still on. I mean, No Country for Old Men. I didn't even mention that one. Like, I just think they're absolutely incredible. And I was so excited that this had been commissioned so that we could, just kind of drool all over a really fucking great film.
I want to start out with a disclaimer here, which is I saw Blood Simple, which is like the Coen Brothers. I think it was like their first movie. I got hooked on the Coen Brothers from Blood Simple. So I appreciate everything they've created. And so when Fargo came out, I was excited about it. Like, I was geeked to see it, but somehow I would rent it and fall asleep as a teenager. I tried 3 different times. On 2 of those times, I literally rented it, started watching it, fell asleep, tried the next day, fell asleep, and then I had to return it because it was due. And then I rented it again. And then I fell asleep again. So I finally just gave up on it. And I think there's a lot of these beautiful, like snowy, quiet landscapes. And I think as a kid, that just knocked me out. There's some magic property to it. So I'm so glad that Eric J. commissioned this. So I had an opportunity as an adult with a much longer attention span and apparently now impervious to snowy scenes. I was able to watch the whole thing. So without further ado, Big D, let's roll that trailer.
I'm Jerry Lundegaard.
You got the car?
You bet. Brand new burnt umber Sierra.
You want your own wife kidnapped.
Her dad, he's real well off.
So why don't you just ask him for the money?
See, these are personal matters.
Personal matters?
Wait, it's Jerry. I don't know what to do. It's my wife.
We gotta talk. It's something, oh, geez. It's terrible.
Oh, I got the state looking for a Sierra with a tag starting VLR.
I'm not sure that I agree with you 100% on your police work there, Lou. I think that vehicle there probably had dealer plates.
Jeez.
DLR?
No, they said no cops.
Here's the second one. So we got a trooper pull someone over.
This a new car then, sir?
Oh, it certainly is, officer. Still got that smell.
There's a high-speed pursuit. We got a shooting. And then this execution type deal.
$1 million, a lot of damn money. They got my daughter.
Hiya, hon.
Brought you some lunch, Margie. What are those, night crawlers?
Oh, yeah, look pretty good.
How's Jean?
Who's Jean?
My wife.
Well, the little guy, he was kind of funny looking.
You were having sex with a little fella then?
Yeah.
Mr. Lundegaard, you mind if I sit down? Carrying quite a load here.
Where's Jerry?
Got your damn money. Now where's my daughter?
Jeez.
Blood has been shed. We now want the entire 80,000.
I answered the darn... I'm cooperating here.
You have no call to get snippy with me. I'm just doing my job here.
What do you fellas got yourself mixed up in?
Police! So, is there anything else you can tell me about him?
He wasn't circumcised.
Oh, yeah?
In 1987, Jerry Lundegaard, the sales manager at an Oldsmobile dealership in Minneapolis, is desperate for money. On the advice of dealership mechanic Shat Proudfoot, Jerry travels to Fargo, North Dakota, and hires two small-time criminals, Carl Showalter and Grimsrud, to kidnap his wife, Jean, and extort a ransom from Wade Gustafson, her wealthy father, who owns the dealership. Jerry will give them a new car and half of the $80,000 ransom. He pitches Wade a lucrative real estate deal, and believing Wade has agreed to front him $750,000, Jerry tries to call off the kidnapping unsuccessfully. But Wade intends to make the deal himself, leaving Jerry with a paltry finder's fee.
So when the movie starts out, we get this title card. The events depicted in this film took place in Minnesota in 1987. So I'm like, oh shit, okay. I didn't know this was like a true crime drama, but it's not. It turns out this is like a fake crime story, that the Coen Brothers wanted to do a true crime story, but they didn't have a true crime story to turn into a true crime movie. So Fargo is not true at all. I wonder how many people watch it and go, holy shit, this must have been real. I heard about somebody getting thrown into a wood chipper. I heard about some fraud. Yes, those two stories were true, about a Connecticut man who put his wife into a wood chipper and a GM financial employee who did, commit fraud with the serial numbers. But the movie on a whole is not real. But I think kind of that aura that they build in the beginning, it gives the movie some authenticity to start off that it really needed.
Absolutely. And if you went by the book, if you tried to go with the exact facts of an exact crime, then making it a comedy seems incredibly insensitive, right? Like people can't get into that. So that really gave them a lot of leeway because this movie is full of laughs, as dark as it is.
Well, and I also think that the setting here, like, the things that inspired this, like you get that they could happen in this area. You get that it could happen in a snowscape, kind of bleak landscape. And that's what sets the scene for this movie. It just feels like these events would only happen there, right? And the same thing I think is true for the casting. The Coen Brothers did such a absolutely brilliant job of putting together a cast of people who looked like they would be a part of these schemes, that they would be a part of the crazy. And while all of the Coen Brothers movies, they have these brilliant casts, this one I think is maybe their best, other than maybe Big Lebowski. from Steve Buscemi to Frances McDormand to William H. Macy, who is like the slimiest dude that's ever been on screen. He's brilliant in it. It's absolutely perfect. And we talk a lot of the time on Shat on TV about like what master classes in acting look like. We talked about it on The Watchmen every single episode. We talk about it in Lovecraft Country, whether we like the story or not. There was a master class in acting with what they were given. And the same is true here. I think this is a movie, maybe the first in a long time, that we look at and we're like, God, these people can fucking act. And I mean, the last person I'll talk about here, I think, is the clear standout of not just the male cast, but maybe just the whole thing, is Peter Stormare. He is so well cast in this. He is so scary, and he's absolutely incredible in this movie.
I don't know. I don't think you can really go up against Steve Buscemi. Now, this this is apex Steve Buscemi. We've had Armageddon Steve Buscemi with his space dementia, and he's shooting the Gatling gun. He's crazy. We have him as Donnie in Big Lebowski. Those are great roles. But in this, I think it's one of his best. As Margie's going out and interviewing people, they say he's a funny looking guy. I would say he looks like Ren from Ren and Stimpy. That's as close as I could get. So these police descriptions, I think they're pretty close.
If you ask anybody about Fargo, they always go, yeah, Steve Buscemi, William H. Macy. Maybe they'll say Frances McDormand. People rarely talk about Peter Stormare, who is by far the best thing about this movie. The King Bee and I did American Gods, and Peter Stormare is in American Gods. He plays Chernobog, and it's like, wow, you went from Fargo to American Gods. You get to carry a hammer and talk in a weird accent. And he's very good at talking in accents. He nails the fucking accent in this. Ash, part of getting this cast is being the Coen Brothers. I don't think another production house or another set of directors have the prestige that the Coen Brothers do. I mean, it's got to be such a luxury to write roles for an actor specifically. Like, they can get anybody they want. I mean, think about the movies they do. Anybody they want, they can get. And I think that's a testament to how much actors love these writer directors. I mean, you think about, do they want George Clooney? They got George Clooney. Do they want
Brad Pitt? Burn After Reading? Yeah.
They got Brad Pitt. Anybody they want. And I think a lot of that has to do with how skilled they are as directors and also their scripting. We talked about in Grosse Pointe Blank how improv can make a movie feel tight and let actors really shine. And we saw that with John Cusack and Dan Aykroyd in Grosse Pointe Blank. I think Fargo is a great example of how you can go the other way, how a very, very sophisticated script with lots of character can really elevate a movie to being art. So this script is 25% longer than Grosse Pointe Blank, but the movie is 10 minutes shorter. That is incredible density of dialogue.
They actually wrote specific intonations in the way that they wrote their dialogue. So William H. Macy, especially, they gave him incredibly specific moments to pause, the way that they wanted him to say certain words. And he worked with a dialect coach, as did Frances McDormand, for months prior to filming this, because they wanted those accents to not only define the characters, but just really define the entire movie and the comedy in the movie. And so they're so smart because they're not just using good words, the way that they're delivering the words, a lot of that isn't even the actor. Sometimes it's the Coen Brothers being incredible micromanagers to make sure those jokes hit exactly the way that they want them to.
And I'm going to sound ignorant here. I've never been to North Dakota or to Minnesota. How close is this accent?
Dude, you've never been to California. Of course you've never been to North Dakota or Minnesota.
So I want to know, hey, is it okay? Do people talk like this?
I know someone from North Dakota, and they sound very similar to this, especially when they say certain words. And my favorite line from this entire movie is when Marge finds the bodies and she's like, he got shot through the hand. He's like, did it offensive wound? The way that she says that is so incredibly spot on with the way that people from this part of the country talk. I mean, it's a bit exaggerated, like all things are in movies, but it's pretty spot on.
But again, I don't know if we're big in North Dakota. I haven't checked the numbers. I can't imagine it. Maybe of the 2 million downloads, we've had 7. I don't know, but I got to ask the question. I'm watching this movie and I just find myself, I'm like, why would somebody do this? Why would you live there? I'm like, why? So I made a list here of pros and cons, and I want us to just talk about whether or not this is the kind of life anybody should lead. Pro, cheap to live. It's easy for you to become somebody because there's not that many somebodies there. It's relatively inexpensive to get a house. There's a small population, so maybe if you want to disappear, they do have 4 seasons. There's wide open, fresh air. There's a lot of prairies. The universities are cheap. Now the cons. These are big time cons. The landscape is boring, flat, desolate. The small population means you're not going to have neighbors who you know. You're not going to have that many friends who you can actually go to see. That's because the big cities that they do have are so far away. The winters, the sub-zero temperatures. Why? Why would anybody live there, and could you?
So 2 things. One is we have one very big fan in Minnesota, which is Steve W., who's commissioned like 4 movies already or something like that. So Big D, I lived in Lima, Ohio. I lived this question for 5 years. I was like, yeah, it's cheap to live. It's easy to become somebody. It's cheap housing. I mean, I bought a house for $127,000. It was 3 years old and a custom build with a 3-car garage and a finished basement, circular driveway, and a 1/4 acre of land with mature oak trees on it. $127,000. If you're young, it sucks. If you're in your 20s, which I was, there's nobody to date in town. The bar scene sucks. There's no educated people, basically. That part sucks. If you're older, I don't think it's so bad. I'll be honest with you. I don't fucking want neighbors. I don't want to hang out with friends. None of that shit interests me anymore. I'm just like, I'm cool with being online with you guys, doing Shappy Hour on Friday, getting drunk with Sarah, and hanging out with dogs. You know, punch a thing every now and then. That's about it. I think the balance, though, is a college town in a small state. Because you have all the college activity, there's youth there, there's culture, there's education, but it's still all the pros you just mentioned.
I mean, I think it looks miserable. I mean, this week when it was 42 degrees here, I was in a full coat, a beanie, a scarf, and had on 2 shirts. So I do not do well in cold weather. I'm not built for it. So I would wind up in the wood chipper because I would not survive at all.
I wonder if it's because you're so close to the ground.
I'm below the ground. I'm from New Orleans, man. I'm from below the ground.
No, I was thinking because you're saying because she's short.
Yeah.
If you get like a foot of snow.
I was going to use the term demure, but yes.
Oh, Ash is having trouble getting through a foot of snow. I mean, that's what I'm
foot
thinking.
of snow is a fifth of my body. So yes, I do have trouble.
When I was living in Lima, Ohio, one time I toured a horse farm because that's the kind of thing you do when you live in Lima, Ohio. And they had all the mares were very tall, but they needed to have a male horse next to them, like in their environment to keep them, I guess, fertile. But they didn't want them getting impregnated by any old horse. They only artificially inseminated them. So what they did was they have a male horse. What is that? A bronco? Or what the fuck is a male horse? Some sort of it's not a stud. A stallion. A stallion?
Yeah. Fuck yeah.
But he was only like 3 feet tall. That way, there was a male presence, so the pheromones were there. But what was really sad is in the winter, the snow would be like 2 feet high, and this little guy could barely get around. His head was just barely above the snow, and he was constantly trying to fuck the other horses, but he wasn't tall enough. That is what I think the afterlife is going to be for me. That's what I've earned myself.
You are that, like you're that horse.
I'm that horse. Well, Carl and Grimsrud kidnap Jean to their cabin on Moose Lake. En route, a state trooper stops them near Brainerd for driving without temporary tags. Grimsrud kills him and 2 witnesses. The following morning, pregnant Brainerd Police Chief Marge Gunderson links the clues to Jerry's dealership, Proudfoot, and 2 call girls. After questioning the sex workers, Marge drives to Wade's dealership, where Jerry insists no cars are missing. While in Minneapolis, Marge reconnects with Mike Yanagita, an old classmate experiencing mental instability who awkwardly tries to romance Marge before breaking down.
I don't know if there's another female role in the 90s that I love more than Marge's. I think she is so charming. I think she's hilarious. I think she's sweet. And Frances McDormand, I mean, she just plays the comedy so perfectly here. I love her in this movie. And I remember I found out I was pregnant with Finn in June of 2015. And I was so excited because that meant I would be kind of pregnant by October. So I could go as Marge Gunderson. It was like a life goal to be pregnant on Halloween. And I did. And it was such a good costume. It was fantastic. And it was my tribute to her because I just think she's absolutely classic. And this movie would be nothing without Frances McDormand in this role.
See, because I think they're walking a fine line. There's a lot of danger in her performance. She could come across as slow. There were times when I first watched this when I was like, is there something wrong with all these people? Is it because it's the pace of life? And what do we got
Are
here?
we in Georgia?
Yeah, whatever.
Chevy Chase on the plantation?
Zippity doodah? I mean,
as I'm watching it now as an adult, I'm loving her. You cannot judge her by the way she looks. It takes her 2 seconds to figure out that crime scene. She's like, oh, here's what happened. She breaks it down. 2 guys over there. Here's the shooting, went the chase. She's great. And I realized that the slow method that she takes, this is the Columbo effect. This is what Columbo, that detective who was on TV, he would always get people and he would be unassuming. He would seem just kind of like non-threatening, and he would get people to say these. He'd be like, could you clarify that for me? Could you help me understand? And that's all Margie does. She sits back, she plays quiet, she asks questions, and by the end, everybody is just kind of giving up what they've done.
But I think that charm, it got to be a bit much at times. And again, there is very little that I dislike about this movie, but I feel like they overdid it with this cultural stereotype. If this were any other cultural stereotype about any other part of the country, I think we'd be grossly offended.
Well, I think it's because North Dakota has probably, 50 people living there? So it's not like we can offend the people of North Dakota.
I understand that this like cultural stereotype is really overdone, but I don't think it's any more overdone than any movie about the South where they portray us as all talking like this with debutante balls and we don't have air conditioners and we're sweating constantly. Like, I think it's the same way that it's overdone about the South. And I think the reason it stands out is because so few movies are set here. Like, what other movies are set in this part of the country? And that's why this seemed like such a novel thing. So I agree it is slightly overdone, but I mean, the South has been getting it for years where we all look like ignorant, incestuous assholes. So, and I mean, not that some people here aren't, but, still, I do think that it's very similar in the, the overblown, like hyperbolic way that this is here.
But I'm worried about Margie. She's going to have a heart attack. She'll get Norm. It's great. He makes a breakfast, giant plate of bacon. They go out to that greasy ass fried buffet. She's pounding Arby's while she's on the road.
As a person who can't incubate a human child, I wouldn't comment on what a pregnant woman needs to eat. But as a former Midwesterner, I will say this is part of the culture. So when I lived in Lima, Ohio, there's a place called the Old Barn Out Back. And it's exactly what it sounds like. It looked exactly like this buffet that they went to. They exposed me to foods that I never even imagined that make no fucking sense. Wide egg noodles with gravy on top. Like, what is that? Everything basically tastes kind of the same, but I wasn't complaining about it. The one thing that blows my fucking mind about the Midwest, though, is ranch dressing. Those motherfuckers put ranch on everything.
Yeah, I mean, we put ranch on everything here in Texas too, but I will say as a person who has incubated 2 humans, I think that this is just how pregnant people eat. I mean, I ate so much more food when I was pregnant and I ate so much more protein when I was pregnant. And this buffet, it brought back so many memories. I don't know if y'all have those. Did y'all have Piccadilly's?
I've been to Ponderosa.
I don't know what that is.
Is it the same thing or Sizzler?
Yeah, I mean, I've never been to a Sizzler, but like this looked like a Piccadilly's, right? Like where you go through, or like a Ryan's where they have like the chocolate fondue bar. And I feel like all of my aunts eat like this. So I don't know. It felt kind of like home. Gross, but I get it. It's cheap. It's good food. Whatever.
But I mean, Margie pulls in and she checks into the hotel and she says, I'd like a good place to eat. Go to the Radisson. The Radisson is the fucking best place you're going to recommend in Minnesota. Steve, right in. Is the Radisson, is that where you take your family members for their birthdays?
Fun fact about Minneapolis, the Vietnamese food is fucking off the chain. Wouldn't think it. It's so good. And get yourself a Juicy Boy too, if you can.
So I want to talk about one of the other characters here, Jerry. He is difficult to watch. he is the worst kind of human slug there is. I found myself wondering if Jerry from Rick and Morty was based on this character. He is spineless. He's incompetent in crime. He's incompetent as a husband. He's shitty at his job. And he's constantly whining and groveling. He is so spineless. I actually have more respect as human beings for the two hitmen, because at least they stand for something. Jerry is the worst. Do you have any Jerrys in your life?
The audience is going to get super pissed at this, but yeah, Roger. He's fucking Roger. It's Roger. We all have Jerry in our lives. Please tell me I'm wrong. Let's see. Not super good at his job. Always making excuses. Spineless. Whiny. Always thinking he's pulling one over on people when we clearly see that he's full of shit. It's Roger.
I don't have anything to say.
Thank you. I rest my case.
McD's so red.
I didn't see this coming. I wish I had had some kind of.
It's in the fucking notes. How did you not see it coming?
Because I'm trying to make it a natural transition.
I don't have any Jerrys currently in my life, thank God. But I do think he's hilarious to watch. And I know, Gene, when we were loving all over one of your favorite movies, Gross Point Blank, last week, we referred to it as a black comedy a lot. And it is a black comedy. It's an example of one. But I think this movie kind of like defines the genre of what a black comedy can do. And when it is effective, what it does, like the impact it makes. And so I think a perfect example of that is the scene with the shower curtain during the kidnapping. I mean, this would be an absolutely terrifying experience. He's a terrifying guy. He's in there, getting his ointment and then all his unguent. And then all of a sudden he realizes she's in the shower. And in any other movie, you'd be so nervous for her. What's he going to do to her? And then she just straight up comes out of that shower curtain. You can see her whole silhouette. It's fucking hilarious. And that type of comedy, and I'm sure this will not go as a surprise to people who know me, but like, this is my favorite type of comedy, like that super dark, like where you don't know if you should laugh or not, but you have to anyway. I absolutely love it. And this movie made me laugh out loud so many times.
You all know I'm a huge fan of Gross Point Blank. I think it is a perfect movie, but Ash is 100% correct here. That was maybe a gray comedy. This is a black comedy. It's so much darker. And what I appreciate, though, is with all that, Ash, you mentioned with the shower curtain thing, I mean, we are seeing people die here. We are seeing people mutilated here. But with the exception of the trooper, the movie rarely shows the gore of the killing. We don't need to see Jean with her head blown off. We don't need to see, the axe going through Carl's neck or face, Seeing the reality of the violence would throw the comedy off. So they only use the violence in funny ways. It's much funnier to me to see blood spraying out of a wood chipper and like a socked foot sticking out of it than to actually see a person being, mutilated and killed. So they use violence to great effect, but they didn't overdo it.
Yeah, I think by not showing it, it does that. It allows you to imagine what it is without it being shoved in your face. But this scene out on that beautiful stretch of North Dakota highway, it's just gorgeous. It's not. It's a fucking desolate. It looks like Hoth in The Empire Strikes Back. The reason why I carry a gun and I have a conceal permit is because of cases like this. If you're out on that road, nobody is coming to help you. So if you were that guy in the red jacket running around in the snow, you wouldn't have been target practice. You might have actually been able to shoot and scare off the hitman. My wife doesn't like guns. And my analogy is this. I wear my seatbelt even though I don't plan on crashing my car. So I have the gun even though I plan on never needing it. But just in case, I'll be glad that I have both.
I agree with you to an extent, Big D. If someone's breaking into my house, I need to have a gun because there's no way the cops are going to get there in time to solve that problem. But in a car, I think this is wishful thinking at best, because most of the time, a person who's going to gun you down already has a gun on you when the crime starts, right? Like, so if you're walking down the street and somebody pulls a gun on you, what the fuck are you going to do? Pull your gun? No, you're dead. So if you're in the car, imagine have you been in a car crash? Shit goes flying everywhere. You've got a fucking concussion. The gun could be anywhere in the vehicle. It's not going to be, unless you've got a holster to your fucking thigh, how are you going to get your gun out?
I know where it is. It's in the glove compartment in my little center console. It's secured. But what about a carjacking? What about, there's a lot of situations where the visual presence of a gun is a deterrent. Of course, if somebody walks up with a shotgun to the window, I'm going to be like, okay, take the car.
That's how carjacking start. They don't just walk up and say hello.
Oh, please.
Ash, you want to weigh in on this one?
Right. I mean, I've been carjacked twice, actually, and neither time would anybody have had a chance to have a gun. Now, I mean, I have a rape whistle and I have a thing of mace, but no guns in my car, but I guess I would just die, but I feel like you probably would die too, Big D, because I mean, it's cold. Is the gun going to work? I mean, I feel like there's a lot of factors here.
Yeah, Big D, it's much more likely that someone in your car is going to injure themselves with a gun, or it's going to get stolen. But I got a question for you that this movie answers very clearly. Wade had a gun. How'd that work out?
He gets shot.
Oh, Wade was stupid with it.
Oh, okay.
It's stupid. He was dumb. He got shot because he fucking deserved it. He knew he was going out there. He presented the gun. He was out in the open. He saw him go. It's Wade's fault. And you know what? If somebody's going to get shot in my car, it's going to be me, goddammit. I'm going to do the shooting.
This really sucks because when they find your body somewhere in a desolate part of Florida or maybe on a stretch of highway in North Dakota, they're going to make the case that this was self-inflicted. And this is the audio that they're going to subpoena.
This is what they'll play in court.
Yes.
Yep.
No, but look, you know what? I don't care. If 2 carjackings out of 100 use a knife or just try to pull on the door, I still want it for that case.
You're our guy. You're our bullshit detector. You're the guy, when it goes artsy fartsy, you're going to call it out. So this movie, it gets real weird for weird's sake. It gets overly self-indulgent. Big D, where were you on this? Are you asleep at the wheel?
No, again, I'm thinking this is a true documentary about North Dakota. I'm thinking this is really the way North Dakota is.
Right, but this movie is trying to tell us things through, like, there's a bark beetle documentary on TV and Margie's watching it. And the mother takes the worm back to the nest. I'm like, oh, this is about Margie. Like, it's relevant to her. This is her reflecting on the bark beetle. I'm like, is that necessary? Or the Yanagita incident? Like, so Mike Yanagita, the whole point of that, I think, is that Margie talks to this guy, realizes that he's lying to her, and then she applies that to Jerry and goes, oh, he must be lying to me. Is that really necessary? Or is it just wasted time on screen?
No, I think you needed to because she's a little backwards. Yeah, she's great at breaking down the facts of the crime scene, but she's not that good with people because she's from out in the sticks in North Dakota.
I don't think it's trying to tell you at all that she's not good with people. The Mark Yanagita thing, I think it's hilarious because she goes in there all excited and all dressed up and feeling kind of sexy and feeling herself. And then he's like a total freak. And did anybody notice that he's clearly Farmer Ted grown up because he totally pulls a Farmer Ted on her by trying to come and sit next to her in the booth. And she reacts the exact same way that all adult women react to Farmer Teds when they grow up and get older and it's not cute anymore. I mean, I thought it was hilarious. And the way she says his name and the way that he talks and the way he starts breaking down and crying, I love that part of this movie. I didn't think it was weird for weird's sake. I just think it was typical Coen Brothers, and that's kind of brilliant. All of us have that person we knew, and we may like our partner, but it's like exciting to see them, and that's what you're seeing there. It gives her a little bit of dimension.
Well, Jerry tells Wade that the kidnappers have demanded $1 million and will deal only through him. Carl, in light of the complication of the 3 murders, demands that Jerry hand over the entire $80,000. While Carl is having sex with a call girl, Proudfoot interrupts and attacks him for bringing him under suspicion. Carl orders Jerry to deliver the ransom immediately, but Wade insists on making the money drop himself. Enraged, Carl pulls out a gun and shoots Wade. Wade fires back, severely wounding Carl in the jaw, and Carl shoots Wade to death.
Clearly, this plan is absolutely ridiculous that Jerry has from the get-go. And it incredibly just goes to total shit when Jerry gets greedy. Or, Wade being such an incredibly prideful asshole. It just compounds and makes it so insane. And I think that that's actually probably a pretty realistic thing. I think it's why a lot of people get caught, is because they allow it to balloon out of control like this. And so if people would just stay in the bounds of what they set at the beginning, I think they would get away with a lot more crimes. But that isn't what you're seeing here. I mean, Jerry crosses all of these boundaries. He allows all these things to spiral out of control. And while I have never committed like a serious crime, I feel like I would be a lot smarter than this if I wanted somebody dead.
No, I think most people are stupid. I wrote you guys when we watched this that I thought this was the most accurate crime drama. Not everybody is a brilliant mastermind who has broken down and set up timing and everyone has a job and it's this giant blueprint and they're going to pull it off like Ocean's 11. Most people are shitty at criminals, whether it's insurance fraud, they're going to burn a car and say it was stolen. People are, or fake some kind of injury and get, disability. People are bad. Jerry's incompetent. And I'm going to tell you what he should have done, right? His wife was nice enough. Why the rush? Why not either go out and kill Wade and make it look like an accident, he gets trapped on the side of the road, freezes to death, or just wait for natural causes? I imagine that Wade has the same diet that Margie does. He's eating shitty. He's going to have a heart attack. How much longer is he going to live? And then you go for the inheritance.
I don't know. I mean, he seemed pretty lively to me. He's one of those old guys that'll never die, right? He's like one of those fit guys with a very nice mustache.
Yeah, and he's fed by anger. It looks like anger is what drives him.
He's a winner is what he is.
But I think Jerry makes a series of mistakes. Wade is now dead during the transfer of the money. Why doesn't he just take this opportunity and make it look like a real kidnapping? Stan, the attorney, is going to say, yep, this is all real. We got the call. We gave the money. Jerry stayed home. Wade went out there. He got shot. Then Gene comes home, presumably safely. This would have been a great way for Jerry to possibly get out of this. Yes, he would have been caught for the embezzling at the dealership, but Wade's now dead. You could frame him for that embezzlement. Wade made me do it. Why doesn't Jerry take this opportunity and try to remove himself from the situation?
Part of what makes his story so gripping is how many times any of these characters could have stopped this train and gotten off. It makes it great. You're like, throughout the movie, you're like, just stop. This is your out. No, this is your out. Carl, Grimsrud, Wade, everybody's got an option to get out. Fucking make the smart choice here, and nobody does.
I agree. And I think the other thing that makes it really great is the way that they portray violence. And I'll be very honest with you, I don't remember the last time I saw this, and I had forgotten how real the violence they do show it is in this movie, how kind of just like in your face it is. And I think a good example of that is when Proudfoot, when he starts hitting Carl with that belt, and you see the whelps like on Steve Buscemi's back develop. And I don't know how they film that without him actually being hit by that leather strap. And then there's the shooting in the face. There's the wood chipper with like the actual like pool of blood there in front of the wood chipper. This movie in a lot of ways is incredibly gruesome, but I think because it's so absurd in the way that it's gruesome that it works. But I was kind of shocked again by how gory parts of it were.
Well, I think that Proudfoot learned a valuable lesson. It's a lesson that I've learned a long time ago. You do not vouch for people. No, at no time, unless it's family, for a job, even if it's to commit a crime, it never works out. Ever. Don't vouch unless it's family.
First of all, I want to take a moment and say that flying naked Steve Buscemi is amazing. That scene where he gets thrown and it's just his naked like ass and taint on screen. I was dying laughing. But I'm a person who trains self-defense, humble brag, 7 to 10 hours a week. And I can tell you that Proudfoot is my biggest fear because there are just these guys. I think Big D's one of those guys. They're so big. They're so violent and they're so creative with their violence that you know you're going to get hurt regardless of how much you train. You'll survive. Like they probably won't kill you, but it's not going to be a good time. And I think that's one of the things that like people who train don't necessarily understand is like, oh, this is going to hurt a fuck ton. The idea is here is just to, when you end up in the hospital, they'll be able to save you. That's the idea.
You're true. They train you techniques to fight against a normal person. I was like the bear. That was what they called me in college because there was no technique. It was just like mauling. It was a mix of chokes, grabbing, pawing. You can't defend against that. Yeah, you'll get me eventually, but I'll leave you like DiCaprio in The Revenant. I'm going to leave you a bloody mess. And sure, I'll be dead, but at least I got my pound of flesh.
And on the topic of bloody messes, Carl getting shot in the jaw is another point where I was just like, holy shit, getting shot in the jaw is excruciatingly painful because there's this bundle of nerves exactly where Carl got shot. And then also you get this head rotation from the force of the bullet. So that your brain is getting rattled around. I recently went in and had a deep cleaning, like a scaling, right, at the dentist. And you'll notice if you've ever had it done, on the top, they'll give you like 4 shots in your gum line. But on the bottom, they only do 1. And it's right at the base, like where your wisdom teeth would normally be. The reason why is that all the nerves on the lower half of your head basically go through this bundle. And that's exactly where the bullet went through. So just to be clear here, if Carl did survive all the events in this movie and he lived to be 100, he's not going to be okay. Like he's going to be drooling the rest of his life. He's going to be missing teeth, and he's probably going to have a very funny talk to match his very funny look. They literally could have taken each one of these segments, and the story was so rich, they could have actually made it an entire TV episode, and I would have watched that for a whole season.
Yeah, and I think you're spot on there because it was written as a TV series originally, and then it got changed into a film. And I think that episodic nature of it, they didn't really lose it throughout the movie. And I don't know about you guys, I have not watched the Fargo TV series except for the first season, and I know that I need to watch the others, but I think that's why people love them so much, because this kind of storytelling, it's like Twin Peaks, right? Like it lends itself, that absurd crime drama, it lends itself to TV. So I get what you're saying.
Well, after fleeing the scene, Carl is astounded to discover that the briefcase contains $1 million. He removes $80,000 to split with Grimsrud, then buries the rest alongside the highway. At the cabin, he discovers Grimsrud has killed Jean just to shut her up. Carl says that they must split up and leave immediately. After Carl yells at Grimsrud and tries to leave with a new car, Grimsrud kills Carl with an axe.
So in the beginning, I told you I had a lot of respect for the two hitmen, but Carl, he is stupid, and he falls right into the tropes of the dumb criminals I was describing. He comes in, and he's proven he's unstable. He's violent. It is probably not a good idea to try and cheat him. He's a smart guy. He's certainly not a good idea for you to argue over $20K for the stupid car. Just say, oh, okay, great. Here's the 20 grand. I want to get out of here. I'm going to go see a doctor and leave. That's a better idea. Why not even? Let's just say this. Don't go back to the lake house. Just take the money and leave. Now he's stuck with Jean. What's he going to do? He might get caught. You go to Mexico with $1 million, you're living large.
I mean, I think, though, that it's a loose end, though, right? Like, I mean, Grimsrud is scary. Like, do you leave that just, like, out there in the open that he can come back? Because I feel like this is the kind of guy that's like a scout. Like, he can, like, a tracker. Like, he can come and find you eventually. So I do think you have to kill him. And I do think that that's why his character is so scary. I mean, we reviewed Halloween a couple of weeks ago, and Michael Myers has nothing on characters like this because they're real people. And we talked about the script. So Steve Buscemi has so many lines because he just talks and talks and talks. But Peter Stormare, he only had 16 lines of dialogue in the entire movie. And that alone makes him so much more frightening. And I think you see this with the character that Javier Bardem plays in No Country for Old Men. They kind of do the same, treatment with him, that he doesn't have a lot of lines, but when he does speak, he's really scary. And that's what you've got here. And I'm sorry, but when he comes out in those weird, like long john, like slightly like old school rugby, like padding, like outfit with that axe, it should be so ridiculous, but it's also so scary. And that's a movie from Fargo, that and The Wood Chipper, that everybody remembers.
His first line in the movie, he doesn't talk forever. And then fucking wife. Like, he had the solution right there. It's like, just get the money from your wife. I fucking died.
Yeah, Gene, it goes back to when we were talking about if you want to seem attractive or mysterious, say less. The more you speak, the more people can find out you're full of shit. So we don't know, and that makes him scary. He really is. And I want to talk about this case of money because it is a moral dilemma. It's, come springtime when we've got, I don't even know if there's a full thaw in the spring, maybe midsummer in North Dakota before the tundra thaws. And somebody comes upon this case with 920 grand. There's blood on it. What do you do? Right now, it's you and Sarah. Gene, you're out there driving. Ashley, you, Tom, his giant hog. You're in a truck. You're driving down the road. You find this case of money. What do you do?
His dick is just in the bed.
Yeah, it's
just
flopping
flying
out
out the window like a dog's tongue. Yeah. I take the money.
Fuck yes.
No.
Yeah.
Yes.
Nobody just leaves $1 million in a case out in the open. I'm calling the Star Tribune and letting them know about it.
Yeah, great. Enjoy your $5,000 reward. I'll be in Cancun or I'll be in Brazil enjoying my none. Yes, nobody leaves it out there. That means that something's happened to the person. You stick it in your truck or whatever. You go home, you bury it, and wait 6 months. Nobody comes looking for it. Guess what? It's gravy train, baby. Let's go. Radissons, buffets, the Arby's, all the Arby's you can eat.
I'm hiding it in Tom's dick.
Ew.
And just as a point for people who have watched Fargo and are screaming at the podcast right now, yes, in season 1 of the TV show, a character does find the money. So we find out what happens to it.
What happens?
It doesn't go well. It doesn't go well at all.
No.
Oh, it's because nobody leaves that money out there. Gene, you're right.
Thank you. Marge returns to Gustafson's dealership and Jerry flees. She drives to Moose Lake on a tip from a local bartender who had reported a funny-looking guy bragging about killing someone. Outside the cabin, she finds Grimsrud feeding Carl's dismembered body into a wood chipper. Marge shoots and arrests him. Soon after, North Dakota police arrest Jerry at a Bismarck motel.
So obviously I love Marge, and I love the fact that Marge gets to save the day here, and that it isn't done in some like stupid way, that she just gets it done with like kind of like solid police work. She's actually a good cop, and she's the hero of the day. And I think it's a really cool way to end this film. I mean, the whole scene where, you know, she's sitting there and she's got the monologue in the car, and then she gets home and she gets in bed, although I don't understand why she sleeps in those sweaters, but she does. And then she gets in bed with, you know, Norm, and then she goes to sleep. And I think it's absolutely perfect. And Marge is my hero.
And she doesn't lose her character in the arrest even. She doesn't turn into some like action star. She kind of awkwardly holds a pistol. She points to the badge on her hat. I mean, she's still Marge through and through. And Ash, I was so worried that when she shot Grimsrud and then approached him on the lake and then the screen went dark, I was like, oh, fuck, something's going to happen to Marge. Thank you, Coen Brothers, for not doing that, making Grimsrud kill her or something like that. I thought she was done for. Like, even I'm not that dark. I needed her to survive this.
Yeah, and I give the Coen Brothers a lot of respect. What they did with this ending is they bookended the story, not in a way that was rewarding just for the movie, but in a way that made me revisit and rethink my original hypothesis about living on Hoth, you know, with my wampas and my fucking tauntauns. Her philosophy on life comes out, and it really made me think. When she's driving back, and she's got him in the back seat, and she's saying, so, you know, that was Miss Lundegaard on the floor in there, and I guess that was your accomplice in the wood chipper, and the 3 people in Brainerd. For what? For a little bit of money? There's more to life than money, you know. Don't you know that? And I started to understand. In the beginning, where I questioned how could people live like this, and saying, poor Margie, she's sitting in bed with Norm, a lot of passion there, she's having a great night out. And I realized that she's got it right, that the people who are out there in North Dakota who lead this life, it's extremely rewarding. What more can you hope for than at the end of the night, you're laying in bed, your partner tells you that there's going to be a 3-cent stamp with a bird they painted on it, you're watching TV and you're hugging. Being with the people you love is the most important. And even though it might not look that glamorous, at the end, I found myself envious and understanding what the movie was laying down.
You know, Big D, I was petting my dog, June, the other day, just thinking about that she has no concept of when she's going to die and how criminally short dog lives are. And I was thinking, like, you only get 15 years, like max. I get 5 times that. And then I was like, what the fuck? I only get 5 dog lives? It's like fucking nothing. Like, my life is criminally short. It's terrifying. I mean, I'm 40 now, and I'm like, this is the halfway point in the movie if I'm lucky.
If you're lucky. Yeah.
That's fucking scary.
Yeah.
Then I thought of all the things I could do. Like, where can I go? What can I see? What can I accomplish? What job can I get? Like, what things can I learn? What skills can I gain? What kind of stature and how far can we push this podcast and all this stuff? Dude, none of that shit is going to matter. And then I was filled with existential dread because my life means nothing. And yeah, thanks, Fargo.
No, I think it's a good thing. It really is. Because if you don't sit down and realize that, you won't enjoy that moment of petting your dog. I have tried to be more present in my personal life and realize that instead of looking forward to the next thing that you have to do, enjoy what you're doing right now, because in the end, all the shit disappears. The stuff you have, the only thing that you really have are the memories and the connections that you have. So that's why be good to each other, people. Happy Thanksgiving.
And on that note, it's time for our very mature wipe scores for Fargo. The Shat meter is our way of telling you how many wipes a movie would take to get off your respective butts. 0 wipes is a perfect movie. It is a pristine, fresh snow in beautiful North Dakota. And 5 wipes is an absolute shit show. It is the blood spray out of a wood chipper with Steve Buscemi's leg sticking out of it. Big D, we'll start with you. What is your wipe score for Fargo?
So I surprised myself here because I hate so much of what the Coen Brothers have done. I really do. There's a few of them that I like No Country for Old Men, Big Lebowski, but then things like Brother, Wherefore Art Thou? And I like Barton Fink too, but there's so much shit that they've done that's just so, I can't stand it. But for this, I got to give them praise. I think the storytelling, it's unpredictable, but the characters are all down to earth. And as the audience, we can connect with these people. They're our family members. They're our neighbors. They're the guy we bought a used car from. And everybody in the movie, their motives are clear. We understand them. So it's not Ocean's 11 where we're trying to dissect the actual crime. We're trying to understand why they do it. The settings, the characters, the dialogues, it's all really memorable. The murders and the violence mixed with that quirkiness that usually drives me nuts about the Coen Brothers, here it works. It is a beautiful film. It is a simple film. It is entertaining throughout. And I'm surprised. This is back-to-back weeks, a 0.25 wipe, enjoyable movie, and it's nearly perfect.
I might be biased on this movie because of how good the Coen Brothers are. They're almost victims of their own success because this is a very good movie, but I don't think it's their best. I think that sometimes the characters sometimes slipped into caricatures, and at times I felt like the messaging was just a little muddled. There was some wasted time there, even though it was an incredibly short movie. And I think one example of that was that Yanagita vignette, which Ash, you really enjoyed, but to me, it just felt disconnected from the rest of the story. It was funny. And again, if this was a TV series and it got its own episode and there was a part of an episode that was this, I think I would laugh about it. But the fact that it was just, part of an hour and a half, did it really have a place there? I felt it was uncomfortable and kind of distracting. The movie could have been a little bit tighter. And here's where I'm going to justify my score, is that Pulp Fiction to me is a 0 wipe movie. I don't think this Pulp Fiction, I understand it's not a Coen Brothers movie, but Pulp Fiction to me is like the gold standard of what a movie like this can be. And it's not quite there so for me, it's an excellent movie. And I'm giving one of my very rare half wipe scores.
I think that's a fair assessment, but I disagree with you in a couple of ways. So I will say that this movie, I was really nervous to rewatch it because I had loved it so much. And I can say if you haven't seen this in a while, watch it because it holds up absolutely beautifully. Everything you remembered about it, it's going to do that for you again. Like you said, it's funny, it's violent, but beautifully done in the way that it's violent. I think the plot's great. The characters are memorable. And I think the reason this is as good as Pulp Fiction is because this is a genre fuck movie. There are these movies that come along every now and again that totally change the way that films do that genre. And this type of genre, this dark film noir, like crime movie, had not been done in this way. And Pulp Fiction is similar in the sense that it's also like a crime mystery and you're unraveling, but it's a different type of crime movie. This is like your dark, small town crime film. And so Pulp Fiction is the pinnacle in its genre fuck that it does because it did change the genre. And I think this is the pinnacle in its type of genre. And so for me, I've never done this before on Shat the Movies. So it's a big, exciting moment for me. But this is the first thing I've watched that I'm like, you know what? This is a 0 wipe movie. It's classic. Woo! It's incredible. I think that it is perfect for what it is. And the Coen Brothers, man, they're brilliant. Please keep commissioning their films because I just think they're absolutely amazing. So I'm going with 0 wipes.
Ta-da! Finally happened. So with Ash's 0 wipes, my half wipe, and Big D's quarter wipe, that gives us an average wipe score for Fargo of a quarter wipe, which I believe puts it on par with Wayne's World.
God.
That is correct, Gene. That now ties this in the 5 spot with several other films. It's tied with Jurassic Park, Wayne's World, Grosse Point Blank, and it is slightly better than Fight Club, The Big Lebowski, and worse than our perfect films, Dumb and Dumber, Back to the Future, Raiders of the Lost Ark, and Pulp Fiction. So it is up there. I think we're going to have to start thinking now of the top 20 as the truly good movies, because there are so many packed into that top 20 that are just, it's so hard to really tell them or to separate them and say which is better, because they're all great.
So one fun thing we did on the last Shappy Hour actually was doing Shat the Vote, where we're actually letting the audience kind of vote on what they think is tiebreakers, right? So we did a tiebreaker for our worst movie. We also did a tiebreaker for, there's like this cluster at like 0.34 wipes. It was a really tough one. It's like T2, Big Lebowski, Cable Guy, Saving Private Ryan. And the audience was like T2 by far. And then we did it again for like the worst movie. It was like In the Mouth of Madness and Willow and I think The Highlander or something like that. So anyway, don't forget to join us for Shappy Hour. It's a lot of fun to vote on that sort of thing. So thank you, Eric, for giving Ash her first zero wipe movie. We have some feedback emailed into us from listener Mike Woolley. And Mike took some exception with our coverage of Clerks. He says, "Hey, Shat crew, my name is Mike, and I found your podcast last year as I've been watching Watchmen, and I found the other podcast offerings quite lacking. After that was done, I started listening to Shat the Movies, and bam, you guys have been an entertainment staple in the Woolley household. My love of your podcast is something I share with my wife, Rebecca, and my 10-year-old son, Duncan. He's an avid fan, although we have to skip past the obligatory masturbation discussions, which come in each episode. Though as he gets older, I'm afraid he's going to start to understand it. Anyway, as a family, we often listen to your podcast and follow up with a screening of the movie, sometimes vice versa. Thank you, Ash, Gene, and Big D for all the entertainment you provide. Now, let's move past the pleasantries and delve into what is really on my mind. Your Clerks review. While I normally enjoy you guys dissecting and destroying movies that I once held so near and dear, this review was too much to bear. I listened during a long trip home from Indiana, the appendix of America, so I was already likely irritated, but I would be lying if I didn't mouth "shut the fuck up" at least 12 times. I normally enjoy Big D as he is one member who is my age, but by the time he got to the point where he called the characters insufferable, I had had enough of Big D's proto-bro frat convention antics. However, rather than tear down the people I love, I thought I'd turn the burner down to simmer and see if I could add a little perspective. Ash, I think you're going to like this part. I will argue that trying to watch Clerks in any other context than the early 90s is a fool's errand. To set the stage, when this came out, I just graduated from college, and like any young person who graduates with honors with a double major in history and English, I became a janitor. I worked nights, and our radio would be inundated with commercials for Clerks, with most focused on the very hip, tragically hip, soundtrack. My friends and I wrote it off for a year until it hit the video store, and I rented it with my then girlfriend, and I thought I had just seen the greatest thing ever. Yes, the acting was terrible. Many of the jokes didn't land, and it really meandered through the story like a slacker going to Quick Stop for a bag of Funyuns and a jolt. However, Clerks had an irreverence and humor that was truly unique for its time. In fact, much of the humor in the film was raw and irreverent for the time. You didn't see movies make jokes about porn. Now it's a national obsession. You didn't see obnoxiousness coming. Now we have the unexpected, crude character as a trope found in every modern comedy. Look out, here comes Grandma. I bet she says something dirty. Wait, what? The priest isn't supposed to talk like that. Clerks introduces us to a world of characters that look like us, acted like us, and talk like us. By the way, if Big D is so put off by the rapid-fire dialogue that was insufferable, Aaron Sorkin would like a word. We were Gen X, and this was the first movie to really feel like it was written for us. Now we're the money demographic, so every show and movie is written for us. I would continue, but I'm sure I bored you guys enough. I hope this helps put Clerks in perspective, but I'm willing to say, upon reading this, Big D will just say, no, the movie is still shit. Regardless, thank you for taking the time to read this tome. Thank you all for making the drive home a little more tolerable and for giving us a reason to watch some old movies. Sincerely, Mike Woolley. P.S. Update your website. Half those people don't work there anymore.
Okay, so Mike, I will be happy to disappoint you. Just like you said that driving home from Indiana, may have been that had put you in the mood that made it a little more sour. There are things that happen in our personal lives that coincide with movies that we watch and review. And sometimes it does leak into a review. And this movie, I think it was just compounded by the fact that I have this unnatural hatred for Kevin Smith. I don't know why. I acknowledge it. It's a bias that I can't really get over. I don't know why. I think we had something bad happen that day. So I do apologize. And I usually do a good job of keeping that out of a podcast. Other than the other one I can remember was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Roger was absolutely pushing Gene and I's buttons the entire recording and just rambling. And he just built me into this rage to where I knew his love of the movie. It just made me hate it even more. So I do apologize for bro frat comments, and I do take what you say seriously, and I appreciate you listening. And I will go back and listen and see if I let some of life creep in. But thank you for standing by us, and I'm never above being put in my place.
I just think you should come to my side and admit, Gene, you too, that Clerks is an absolutely superior movie to the scores that you guys gave it.
No, I'm not ready to do that yet.
No, I don't think so.
No.
Big D, what do we have coming up next?
So coming up next is a great movie. I can remember going to see this in the theaters. A funny memory that I do not think will hold up, but fingers crossed. One of our listeners, Justin M., has commissioned the 1986 American Western comedy film that tells the story of 3 cowboy movie stars from the silent era. They are fired when one of the movies bombs, and in what seems to be a career-saving offer, young Mexican woman Carmen offers them a high-paying gig in her village. The 3 jump at the opportunity, expecting to do their typical act, but Carmen believes they are the real heroes and asks them to rid her village of bad guy El Guapo. Again, it was commissioned by Justin M. It was released in December of 1986, directed by John Landis, and this movie has a warm place in my heart, and I hope it stays there.
I've never seen it.
I laugh when I think about this movie. I am
Yes.
terrified of what's going to happen when we actually have to record this. I don't know if I'll be able to get through it. It'll be like me and Raj on Spaceballs. It's just going to be Big D and Gene Lyons quoting Three Amigos and Ash going,
She'll be coming round the mountain when she comes. She'll be coming. Is that the singing bush? She'll be coming.
Yeah.
So good.
It's that good.
So good.
We're really selling her on it.
So good.
I am super looking forward to this one, guys.
You shot the invisible swordsman? You shot the invisible... And keep in mind, I've not seen this movie in at least 20 years.
Hey, you! Look up here!
Yeah.
Ash's face looks like someone farted in her recording closet. Like, she looks so unhappy right now.
Well, isn't Chevy Chase in this?
Yes. Would you say that you have a plethora of piñatas? Do you know what a plethora is, Happy?
All right,
Yes,
guys, I'm going to go ahead and get off so that you guys can, continue this.
It's a sweater!
It's a sweater.
When we actually record this, I'll do the Awepo dance for you the whole time.
Oh, and now I'm excited. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, Justin, for immediately making my life so much better. Thank you, Eric, for this thoughtful commission that got me to actually watch Fargo and understand it is one of the best movies that's ever been made. That concludes this week's episode of Shat the Movies. Be sure to follow us on social media and share with a friend. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, and Instagram at Shat the Movies. You can email us, host@shatthemovies.com. You can support the podcast by shopping our Amazon affiliate link, completing a free anonymous survey to help attract advertisers, buying our merch, or commissioning your own movie. Find all that information by visiting our website, shatthemovies.com. Also, another way to support us is just go to shatthemovies.com/Twitch and sign up for Twitch Prime. You can subscribe to us using your Amazon Prime membership. It's actually included in your Amazon Prime membership, costs you absolutely nothing, but it helps us out a little bit each month financially. Also, you can check out our sister podcast, Shat on TV, where we review TV series such as Lovecraft Country, Westworld, True Detective, Taboo, American Gods, Game of Thrones, and Watchmen. Find all that information on our website, shatontv.com, where fine podcasts can be found, including iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, and YouTube. Be sure to subscribe, and if you stop by iTunes, please leave a 5-star review. That helps the podcast grow. On behalf of my co-hosts, Big D, Dick Ebert, Ash Lafley, and the King Bee, I'm Gene Lyons. Be sure to join us next week for the following movie.
Let's ride!
The Three Amigos. They were the biggest stars of their day.
The Three Amigos are history.
But that was yesterday.
Look, boys, I know show business. Something always turns up. Telegram for the Three Amigos.
Come with me where moonbeams paint the sky.
Who are you?
The Three Amigos! Arriba!
I like this guy. They are funny guys. Just kill one of them.
Steve Martin. Chevy Chase.
Do you have anything besides Mexican food?
Martin Short. The Three Amigos.
Throw down your gun! Not you, Dusty! Sorry!
You're so brave.
Whoa, Horsey!
Three Amigos.
I'll come back one day.
Why?
Oh, you want to tell them? Okay, hurry up and tell them. What happened?
The dinosaurs came alive.
They came to life.
What?
They did. Mm-hmm.
Put some pants on.
You sent pictures of your kid with no shirt on.
I don't have pants on.